Everyone around you is moving, building, getting on with life. And somehow, in the middle of all of it, you've never felt more alone. This feeling is heavy, heartbreaking, and soul-crushing. I felt this way before, and this character did, in the most crushing way as well. Kageyama was the last character in Haikyuu I would ever expect to see myself in. He's loud, demanding, and socially impossible in ways I absolutely am not. But watching that junior high throwback sequence with his teammates walking off, his toss still in the air, and nobody jumping to spike his toss, I recognized a very familiar feeling immediately. It wasn't Kageyama's anger, nor his intense demand, but the silence after it all. That specific silence of extending something you genuinely believed in, like his last toss was, then realizing mid-air that nobody around you was built to receive it. It was the table after graduation for me. Different setting, same silence. I had made a choice I believed in completely. Full-time upskilling while everyone else chased the job our degree prepared them for. When we got together again, I sat there quietly while they talked about their work, their bosses, and their plans in life. As much as I wanted to talk and socialize with them, I just had nothing to contribute to that conversation. It wasn't because I had literally nothing, but because what I was building didn't exist in a language that room spoke yet. Kageyama's junior high arc was an actual reflection of my batch's get-together experience. He wasn't behind at all, and neither was I. We were just mid-toss in a room full of people who had already stopped jumping. I know that this is a very abstract statement now, but you will understand later on. Kageyama Tobio operates on one belief, and one belief alone. Effort is the only valid currency on the court. Not talent, not personality, not history. Effort. If you are on that court, you pay in full. Every rally, every set, and every ball within reach. It's his non-negotiable when it comes to playing, and it's not a high standard to him, it's just his baseline, and it's the only one that makes sense. This is why Kunimi barely walking for a savable ball wasn't just laziness to Kageyama. It was a violation of the only social contract he recognized when it comes to volleyball. This is also why Kindaichi failing to meet his sets wasn't a skill gap. It was proof that they weren't speaking the same language. Kageyama wasn't being cruel to Kindaichi there at all. He just genuinely could not understand what they were doing there if they weren't going to pay the price he paid every single day without question. In the end, he demanded more from them. He pushed harder. He raised his voice, began lifting up sets he believed were best for their offense, and raised the playing standard until the only logical conclusion arrived. Everyone stopped jumping and listening to him. He tossed into an empty court and got benched, and the story most people tell about that moment is that Kageyama was wrong. That his standards were too high, his ego was too large, and that his demands were very unreasonable. Basically, he needed to learn to be a team player. And this perspective was the most flawed one I've seen someone use to look at Kageyama's character. Kageyama didn't fail at Kitagawa Daiichi because his standards were too high. He failed because he was in the wrong room. The teammates around him weren't built to spike his tosses, not because they were bad players, but because they and Kageyama were simply incompatible. He was simply not fit to be around the people there because they operate in different ways. They cannot be teammates. Why, you might ask? Because compatibility can never be forced through demand. You just can't force someone into speaking your language by speaking it louder. Life just doesn't work that way, right? If this is true, then how did Kageyama fit into his current team, Karasuno? Oh, Kageyama abandoned his king of the court status to be on the same level as his teammates, right? Well, not exactly. Kageyama tried this, but it didn't help, remember? Atsumu even called him a goody two-shoes for his attempts at being a team player. So what was the major change? Well, what changed at Karasuno wasn't Kageyama for sure. His standards didn't drop. His demands didn't soften. It was the people around him that changed. But what change is that exactly? Simple. Hinata Shoyo arrived. He was a player with no technique, no height, no conventional ability, but with one thing nobody at Kitagawa Daiichi had: the absolute refusal to let a toss go unanswered. This was the only thing Kageyama searched for this whole time, and now it's here. Hinata didn't meet Kageyama halfway. He built himself into someone capable of entering Kageyama's world entirely. He trained in every way possible so that his desire to get a toss in the future wouldn't be wasted, because his body can keep up with his mentality. When that moment happened, Kageyama's isolation didn't just gradually fade, it actually ended. Because the room finally fit, after all those struggles of just finding that someone who can. If you have ever sat in a classroom, an office, a lunch table, or even a group chat and felt that quiet, uncomfortable distance between you and everyone around you, the basic instinct is to turn that feeling inward. The questions start to cripple in. What the hell's wrong with me? Why can't I just fit? Why do I always feel like I'm too much, different, or like I'm operating on a frequency nobody else can hear? Kageyama's character arc answers those questions without a single word of reassurance. He didn't fix himself. Well, he tried, but he didn't really succeed, did he? I mean, being called a goody two-shoes surely sucks, especially about a thing you're genuinely passionate about. But no. He didn't lower his standard or learn to be easier to be around. He just ended up in a room that finally fit. And everything that once made him impossible to be around became the exact thing that made him irreplaceable. Hinata was actually the one who verbalized it out loud for the rest of us. What's wrong with being king? With this one line, Hinata taught Kageyama the most important lesson about his character. Instead of stooping down for the sake of blending in, just challenge and encourage all the others to meet you up above. That's where real growth and improvement comes. The loneliness you feel isn't a diagnosis, but a signal. It's not an indicator that something is broken inside you. It just tells you that you are a setter mid-toss in the wrong room, and that somewhere out there, people who refuse to let your toss fall down and hit the floor exist. You just have to find them. You don't need to change. You just need to be in the right room, surrounded by the right people. Outgrowing people is a very slow burn type of experience, but it is one of the most important things you can experience personally. Let me be the one to say it, just in case nobody else said it yet. Kageyama was on the right during his Kitagawa Daiichi crash out, and his teammates were the ones on the wrong for not keeping up with him. It is a competition, and improving is a crucial factor of it. Kageyama was simply more in love with the sport, which is a very positive thing, but it was taken very negatively by his teammates just because they can't keep up with his overwhelming talent and potential. Let me leave you with this thought to think about. The room that can't hold you was never meant to be fixed. It was meant to be left. This was the isolation diagnosis by the character, Kageyama Tobio.